What's up, world? My name is Crystal and I go by the name Snow. I am a single Christian mother, and God has put it on my spirit to share and navigate my journey with you. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are new to my channel, then you should know that I am sharing my story as a Christian woman, but also as a Christian woman who does have interactions and is involved in the dating world with men. So if you are looking for a page where singleness as a woman is addressed without interactions with men, maybe you're a place at your life where you are taking a span of time away from dating and those types of things, then this channel is not for you. I wanted to let you know up front because I do not want you to waste your time. So, today I wanted to talk a little bit about where I am now spiritually. In my last video, if you remember, I shared an awesome story about my singleness and how I have been blessed to share my experiences with a guy that we'll name Adam for the last 9 months. I also mentioned how I did not have a church home. So I wanted to kind of pick up there and give you a few updates. Where do I start? Let's begin. So, I have always been a very charismatic, energetic type of person. I've always loved to dance, sing, act, full of personality. However, growing up in a traditional Baptist church, I was often misunderstood, and sometimes that just didn't mesh well, right? With, I would say, the culture of the traditional Baptist church. So, I left that church at age 19. I found myself sifting around. I came across a lot of wonderful churches. I came across some not so wonderful churches. I ended up leaving a church that I had been at for about 4 years because I feel like it was right. It was right after COVID hit. And I feel like God placed me there to introduce me to what faith was. I had a lot of struggles in my life that were centered around knowing what faith was and how to operate and use it in my life. And so, being that I didn't have many struggles growing up, I quickly found that when I was experiencing the world, I really didn't know how to apply the notion of faith. So, I left that church. I felt like God was moving me somewhere else, and that brought me to my last church home. So, my last church home was a church that I was very familiar with. It was a church that I had been going to as a child. You know, they would have these after school programs, they would take us out of town. We would play, they would minister to us, and it was just such a great atmosphere. So I actually came back in touch with that church because they have community sports, and I got my son involved in those. But after being in that church for a while, there were a few things that I just felt, I would say, areas that I felt that I needed to receive more in that I wasn't. So I kind of got a little discouraged, to be honest. You know, didn't want to say it that way, but I did. You know, it's just the truth. And so I ended up leaving. So back to the story that I told you about in the previous video with Adam. As I mentioned to you, Adam brought me to his church. About a month in, I had shared with him my previous experience at the last church, and he said, "Hey, come visit my church. Come to church with me." So I began to go to Adam's church. And as I've stated, Adam and I have been friends and growing together and learning each other and being tested for about 9 months now. And so it's been about 8 months that I've been attending the church. The church has had open arms, loving spirits from the beginning. The thing that I think I love most about this experience is that when I first started to attend the church, no one knew me. No one had a clue who I was, and nobody knew that I was connected in any way to Adam. So I had a slate. And so, what that was able to do was to reveal to me how people wanted to treat me just for me, right? How people viewed me just with seeing me and getting to know me for who I am. Not for my history or past involvement there, not because my child was in sports or involved there, not because I knew people there, not because they remembered me from my past or anything of that nature, not because of what how they viewed me or saw me on social media, but just me, right? And that's really important. So, as I mentioned to you in my previous stories, because my second and third stories are my story about Adam and I. The story that's posted on this channel is as the second is kind of the more descriptive story that gives the meat and a lot of the details that's needed. The third video, even though I tried to avoid this, both of them are the same length. However, I go into more details about the situations rather than providing the meat, the content that I felt was more needed. So anyways, I had been going to this church and the atmosphere was wonderful. I had been fed there continuously. I could feel the spirit of God. Everything had just been great. And that was from the first time I visited when Adam told me to attend. I mentioned in the stories about me and Adam that we had a few shifts and transitions, right? And so shifts and transitions are one of the few themes that will be discussed on this channel and that, we'll get to navigate together. So some of the shifts that took place between Adam and I were shifts from being in a relationship to kind of somewhat exclusive type of thing. Then we shifted to just dating. We broke up. And even though emotionally, we have depth, right? We care about each other and we desire a future together. We are now just friends. So, with all of those shifts in our relationship, I ended up experiencing a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. So, with the church that I had been attending, it is Adam's church and it's his family church. So, there are so many of his family and friends present. And I guess my fear was that, well, I want to join. I'm fed here. I feel loved here. But what if we don't work out? Right? I want to be a part of this membership, but what if we end up on bad terms? How will that look like in this church? What will that look like? How will it affect me? Forget him. I mean, not I hope he don't see this. I know one day he will, but not literally forget him, but in the sense that this is his church. So I would be the outsider, and I was predominantly concerned with fear about how I would be affected if Adam and I did not work out. So I felt led to join the church a few months back, and I didn't. And I took the initiative to walk down and join the church on New Year's Eve. However, when I tell you, all of this fear and anxiety just rose up in my spirit again. Just really concerned and wondering about the risks that I was taking with Adam and what the outcomes might look like. I stopped showing up. I stopped showing up. I had all of these personal issues going on, and I would only attend online. There was a sermon, and I'm not going to get into the meat of that sermon because that will be actually another video. But it was a sermon or message, rather, that was taught to us at Bible study. And in whole, the message talked about, how can I tell you without revealing the message? I'm just going to tell you the topic, surrendering your ego, right? And so our ego is like a protective mechanism. It's what rises up in us when we feel afraid or when we feel anxious or doubtful, discouraged. And so we act in our ego or out of our egos, not sure which is the correct way to use it, but we act out of our egos to protect ourselves. And so I stopped attending because of my ego. And we had so many situations that transpired between us because of both of our egos. But after hearing that message, I decided to surrender my ego and work harder to stand on my faith, to stand on strong faith, and go ahead and finish the process. So, today, what I wanted to share with you is I am officially a new member. Yay! So, congratulations to me. I am so proud of myself. And to be honest, I feel so at home. Like I mentioned to you before, I have had a very diverse, lengthy process really trying to find a church home. When I left the home that I was at 19, nothing ever felt the same. I was born in that church. I grew up in that church. My mama grew up in that church. So there were people who I knew all of my life. And sometimes it can be really difficult to process the idea of losing someone or so many people that you've had forever. And I think one of my struggles, even when I found wonderful churches, was not being able to be in a place where I felt at home. So I'm so proud of myself for overcoming my fears and overcoming my anxiety and joining a church that absolutely feels like home. Regardless of any other variables, I stepped out on faith in a way that God had been directing me to. And that is how He saved me, because now I don't have any more worries. Prior to being introduced to that church, like I mentioned to you before, I was not right, okay? And now I'm back with God again. So if you are here experiencing this with me, this wonderful victory of new membership, and if you are here tuned in to my channel, I really appreciate you. I hope that something that I've said today has been beneficial to you. It has touched your spirit. It has impacted you in the way that God intended for it to. God bless you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.